You are listening to the Brian Craig Show podcast, broadcasting from sunny South Florida. Brian is joined by his wife and co-host, Kathy. Follow Brian on social media at BrianCraigShow.com. And now, Brian and Kathy.
Welcome to the program, everyone. I'm Brian Craig. Always joined by my wife and co-host Kathy. And of course, we're going to talk about these just terrible event that happened at the school in Texas a couple days ago. And we're getting all kinds of new info out about it. That's every time you get a new story, it's more and more disturbing at the inaction of the police. A story came out today. We first heard yesterday. We started hearing yesterday morning. We started hearing the stories that the parents were begging the cops to go in and they were outside. Mm-hmm. And now we got an update. It was even worse than that. There were two groups of police officers. Apparently there were police officers even like right outside the door.
In the hallway 19.
And
for 45 minutes they stood there and did nothing.
And the officer who was in charge, who was a senior officer with the local city police department, told them not to go in because he figured he had determined everyone was dead from the shooter.
Why would he determine that when they were still getting 911 calls from the kids
because he's
inside?
An idiot. He's an idiot.
I just can't believe so many incompetent people are in one police force.
Well,
it's incredible to me.
We put off the show a little late today than I was planning on doing the show because I was expecting whatever police officer. I've heard two different versions. Both versions say he's with the local city police department. One said he was the chief and one said he was a senior officer on scene. I don't know which is true, but I was waiting for the podcast today to see if that police officer would be fired today and what the reaction would be after they were fired, and I've heard nothing. So as of this moment, they should be fired and maybe investigated for manslaughter. This is, let me tell you,
almost like they're an accessory.
Yeah, this school,
incredible.
Oh yeah, this school shooting is the biggest government, because police are part of the government.
F up.
Yeah. This is the biggest government screw up in the history of the government because little children that are really babies at that age were murdered, died because of the screw up of the government.
I think there were 8 or 9 children still alive in those 45 minutes. Can you imagine what they were going through? The teacher was probably dead already. What they were going through in that classroom, calling 911, crying, and those cops just sat outside there. I don't understand. I'm thinking they were just afraid to go in. To me, that's what it was, that he was afraid to make the call, and they were. The one guy said, well, if they went in, they'd get shot at. Isn't that what a cop does? Isn't their job putting their life on the line to say, what's the point of calling the police if they don't help you?
Well,
crazy.
On 9/11, the reason that the firefighters and police on 9/11 are held on such a pedestal, the ones that died in the World Trade Center, is because we used to talk about this at the time. They were running into the building everyone else was running out of.
Those are true heroes.
And when you're a police officer, when you're a first responder, that's the job. And 99.99% of the time, you'll probably never be called to take that kind of risk. But this was a pattern. All this talk about gun control, what this really shows is we need more people that are armed around because civilians cannot depend on the government. I want to go through this story, and it's one of a few stories that are just really disturbing. This is about a mother. Listen to this. Uvalde police are facing new criticism over firsthand accounts and videos showing them handcuffing and restraining frantic parents who were urging them, the parents, to storm the school amid the massacre. The police were doing nothing, Angelique Gomez told the Wall Street Journal. They were just standing outside the fence. They weren't going in there.
How frustrating.
Gomez had 2 children in second and third grade. She drove 40 miles to the school after hearing of the attack. She was one of the desperate parents who encouraged police to enter the school. Eventually, federal marshals put her in handcuffs, told her she was under arrest for intervening in an active investigation. Gomez was able to convince a Uvalde police officer whom she knew to have the marshal free her. Then she took the opportunity to move away from the crowd, jumped the school fence. She ran inside the school where she rescued her children herself. She said other parents trying to get to their kids were tackled and even pepper sprayed.
Incredible. By
police. There's
Again, the parents are the criminals here.
Yeah, right. Yeah. They were more worried.
That seems to be a theme.
At this point, yeah, like with the Virginia School Board, at this point, it seems like the police were more interested in crowd control. There was another story of a guy who's a Border Patrol agent who was off duty. He was getting his hair cut. He didn't have his weapon or uniform or anything. He was getting his hair cut, found out about it, borrowed his shotgun from his barber, drove to the school because he had kids in the school, went inside the school himself and got his kids out, found his kids and got them out.
There was also a story on the news because they were covering it pretty heavily on Fox. What happened is apparently the shooter shot his grandmother. She called the cops immediately. He left with her car, her truck, or his grandpa's truck, armed. And then he crashed his truck and started shooting at people at a funeral home, outside of a funeral home. By this point, the police were on their way and they knew. And apparently they had told the school to go on lockdown, which was the right thing to do. And of course, now people are wondering if lockdowns even do anything. All they do is make the children sit there like sitting ducks.
Yeah.
Maybe they should just evacuate the school and have all the kids and teachers run out. I don't think a shooter would want that. Anyway, so the school went on lockdown. All the doors were locked. But this is what's really interesting. One teacher, a minute before the shooter arrived, opened that door and propped it open, they said on the news. And they don't know why.
I heard that.
They don't know who it was, but they don't have the name. But a teacher opened that door when the door was supposed to be locked and propped it open with a chair or something.
Wow.
That is, to me, like, really, I don't understand what happened.
Well, you see
there's a story there.
You see these teachers on Libs of TikTok, and you can't help but wonder. You gotta
wonder why the hell that happened.
All this talk with the left with the gun control. Okay, they can't wait to politicize a tragedy, so they're out there while there's still children being operated on in the hospital. They're out there making it political. If they would have waited a day, they could have gone after their second big thing they hate, after guns or cops. Conservatives MAGA were pro-police. We support the police. But what happened there in Texas, these cops got a lot of kids killed. And what you're finding is, they want to keep talking about the AR-15 and the kid and this and that. And obviously there's responsibility and problems there. But the big problem that we see with these shootings, it's Columbine, the Parkland shooting, and this one, the police didn't go in and neutralize the shooters. And I remember very well after Columbine, because this was a very controversial thing. Why didn't they go in? And they said this was procedure. This is how we're trained. They have a perimeter. They prepare for. And then after Columbine happened, there was obviously investigations and talk and discussion and national discussion. Remember it well. And it was announced that police departments nationwide were going to change their tactics. And this was no longer going to be the case. And now we're seeing in school shooting after school shooting that they're still doing what they did at Columbine, form a perimeter and don't go in. And what happened?
They did the same thing at Parkland too.
Well, what happened in Parkland, there was a lady police captain from the local sheriff's department who, when she arrived, she took charge, wouldn't let anyone go in, including first responders. And now we know in Parkland and now in Texas that there were people, children, maybe even teachers, I don't know, but certainly children, who could have and would have lived if they would have gone in and they would have received medical treatment because of these 911 calls and everything that we're getting. Well, they bled out.
I think they're going to find that here. And they're now saying, like I said, that 8 or 9 children were alive up to 45 minutes when they were outside of that hallway. And I really don't understand the thinking. And like I said, I almost feel like these cops are afraid of these
there's some of that.
Shooters. And they don't want to confront them. Look at that one in Parkland who ran away and hid. That's not what your job is as a cop. Your job as a cop, maybe these are older people and now they have families and they don't want to take that risk. Well, that is your job in life, is to put your life on the line, just like firefighters. and it's a scary thing, and we all respect it for sure. But if you can't even go in and put your life on the line for children, what the hell kind of a cop are you? That's crazy.
This is the thing. You know, government by definition is not only incompetent, it attracts incompetent people. And there's a lot of people that are cops. This is not all of them, okay? But there's a lot of people that are police officers because it's government work, right? You can get a job as a police officer with very little education for many people, earn a decent living where you're not working paycheck to paycheck, and they get the pension. And I think they call that, is that what they call flatfoots, like police officers that are like kind of dragging their feet, just wait?
Flatfoots, I think, are, I don't know if that's all cops or cops that walk the beat. Like what they used to call cops that would like walk the beat, that walk the streets.
There's a term like that to describe it. But I just think a lot of cops like government are late. And you look at the police officers in Loudoun County that were attacking parents, you know, and remember police officers, my goodness, I don't want to sound like BLM here, but police officers, look at what they were doing during the COVID lockdowns in New York and in California.
Well, I think the problem
business owners and people.
I think the problem is police I'm not blaming them. I blame the person in charge. Police officers are trained to follow orders, just like soldiers. There's a hierarchy. There's you know, captain, sergeant, and all this stuff, and you are trained to follow orders. There's always somebody in charge who tells you what to do. And with Parkland and with this, there was somebody in charge who kept telling them to stand down. Now, those 19 cops in the hallway, they all might have wanted to go in there and bust through that door.
Yeah.
But they can't do it. They're afraid to do it unless the commanding officer tells them gives them the green light. And that's what they're trained to do. They're trained to follow orders. Mm-hmm. And unfortunately, I mean, that's just the way it works. So you have one person who's a total boob who makes a horrible decision. But, you know, I think in certain circumstances like this, I would think that some cops would just say, screw this. We got to do something. This is crazy. Even the people outside, you know, of course it was their kids, but the regular citizens were ready to storm into that building. And they were talking on Fox, like I said, how they're starting to wonder if even lockdowns are a good idea, because when you're in a classroom, most classes, and this is a mistake in the building, have one door in and out. That's it. And I always felt classrooms should have two doors. Mm-hmm. There's one door in, one door out. So what happened here is like this guy put himself in the room and shut the door. They were trapped. They were absolutely trapped. There was no other door to run out of or anything. You had kids running out of windows. They really need to redesign schools in mind of these shooters. They need to, when they design a new school, they should have started doing this years ago, bring in security experts and say, okay, how do we design this school with the thought in mind of dealing with the school shooter? I hate to say that, but that's how they have to think these days.
Yeah,
they have to be proactive and can't rely on cops to save. Look at Parkland had a cop on thing. He went hiding the whole time. You can't rely on them.
Well, you know, with both Texas and Parkland, because we're finding out now a senior officer, we don't know which one, with the local city police, told the cops not to go in the room. They didn't go in. And in Parkland, the lady captain. A lot of times with police departments, people that get into the senior positions, like the captain and whoever the senior city police are, they're police officers, but they're more politician than they are police officer. When you get to these high ranks in a government agency, when you get to these high ranks in the police department, you're political.
Look at Kim Potter. She was a very high-ranking officer. And she was put in a situation in real life where she was training somebody and made a tactical mistake. And now she's in jail. So I think that's a good example of that you have cops that either, you know, they're not training. They need to change the protocol completely because it's clearly not working. Canada, they just had a guy headed towards a school today that they stopped. They have stopped shooters. They have gotten intel. People have contacted the police, and they have been able to thwart a lot of these incidents in this country and like today in Canada. But what they need to do is change the way they structure the schools, put cameras all around, do whatever they have to do, and they have to bring in security experts, come up with a new protocol. And it's no good to say lock all the doors if some teacher's going to go and unlock the damn door and let the guy in.
That's
if
true.
That's what
true.
he did.
If that,
who the hell knows why he did that?
And
I mean, that's nuts.
Also, something about the senior officers that are messed up both of these situations. Yeah. A lot of times, too, senior officers, they're not just political people to get in these political positions. Like, look at the mayor of New York, right? Eric Adams. He was a cop, but he's a politician. That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
And what happens with high-ranking officers that are political, like Eric Adams, which you have in positions of authority when a disaster happens, like a school shooting, Parkland, Texas. These are people that haven't been out on the streets dealing with criminals for years, maybe not even ever, and now all of a sudden they're in a scary situation.
It's like all politicians,
that they've not,
Brian. They don't know how the real world is.
That they haven't been in years, facing something that's dangerous or maybe ever, and they mess it up. It's really a terrible it's a terrible tragedy, obviously, that goes without saying. But the way that the police did not respond
for 45 minutes,
there were dead children because of this. And
what were they waiting on? What were they waiting on there in that hallway?
I don't know.
We
don't know. We don't know because we keep getting different stories, and it's going to come out soon. I'm really upset that Governor Abbott has not removed whoever that officer was from duty. That he should. He's got the authority as the governor to move in and do some things.
I mean, they couldn't look through a window and shoot the kid through the window. They couldn't get somebody in there to just look and see, and boom. They could have saved, 8 or 9 kids in there, maybe more. Maybe some were still alive.
I had a police officer call me on the radio this morning who is not a school resource officer. He's something called a marshal. He's a retired police officer who's like in a school district police force now, who has special training on protecting schools. And this is something that came to our community after Parkland because,
that's what they need.
Parkland, Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School is just a couple miles from where we live. So we're in that community, and this was a local guy. And he's part of a special unit of all armed police officers inside the schools in a program that was formed as a result of what happened with the resource officer at Parkland. And he was talking to me about these cops that show up. He says most of these guys, they're patrolmen. They write tickets all day. This is so far out of their training.
Right.
They don't, that a lot of times but I'm not into making excuses. I think every police officer has learned how to confront bad guys, and they're armed. This isn't England. They're all armed. And their job is to go in there and take out the bad guy when there's children. And I find the stories of them pepper spraying parents, arresting parents, tackling parents to be disgusting.
And just like with Parkland, the left, they had that thing here that you went to with Laura Loomer. The CNN town hall.
Yeah.
And even after all the news came out about the cops standing down and the one cop hiding, they still blamed the NRA. They still blame the GOP, Tucker, Trump, whoever they want to blame. Instead of dealing with the actual real problem at hand, which is people slipping through the system and these local police officers not handling the situation properly.
Now, listen, we're going to take a quick break. When we get back, there's a lot more to talk about. Don't go anywhere. We will be back right after this.
The next generation of blockchain is here. Introducing Locky Blockchain. Locky Blockchain is developing technology that reduces the gaps between traditional and decentralized finance. Their mission is to build a blockchain ecosystem that's more secure, scalable, faster, with the lowest fee. You can choose your staking preference and start earning with a few clicks. You can swap digital assets from across the interchain with very low fees and instant transaction confirmation. It's fully compatible with MetaMask, Ledger, and the leading mobile wallets. This is the next-gen blockchain build that will resolve traditional decentralized problems. They bring a new experience to the NFT industry. Speed, security, low fee, and scalability. To learn more, visit LockyChain.com. That's LOCKEY. LockyChain.com. No matter who you are, where you live, or your life situation may be in, relationships of all kinds have influenced your life. Both positive and negative relationships have an impact on our physical and mental health and our overall well-being. The book from author Dr. Lamar Spencer, The Depth and Diversity Within Relationships, available on Amazon, and the author's website, drlamarspencer.com, offers true accounts of love, loss, joy, and stress. These collections aim to encourage, inspire, and share experiences that have helped others just like you navigate relationships. In this must-read book, read about recommendations concerning mindfulness and relationships, as well as recommended keys to building positive relationships and the importance of setting boundaries. You will learn to build more positive and lasting relationships through this book, The Depth and Diversity Within Relationships, from author Dr. Lamar Spencer. Order your copy right now on Amazon and drlamarspencer.com. Summertime's right around the corner. Are you ready for your summer vacation in the Great Smoky Mountains? Did you know that the Great Smoky Mountains is the most popular national park? It has everything you and your family are looking for this summer. The Dollywood Theme Park, outdoor rafting, horseback riding, fishing, and that's just the beginning. You can have it all. And there's no better way to enjoy the Great Smoky Mountains than staying in a beautiful sky view log cabin. Imagine waking up with the sunshine shining through the massive glass windows, having your morning coffee on the balcony, and enjoy the natural beauty around you. Walk the trails, mountain biking, there's even a waterfall, and have all the modern amenities too. A private hot tub, fireplace, a pool table, and more. Visit skyviewvacation.com and book your accommodations right now. skyviewvacation.com.
You are listening to The Brian Craig Show podcast, broadcasting from sunny South Florida. Brian is joined by his wife and co-host, Kathy. Follow Brian on social media at briancraigshow.com. And now, Brian and Kathy.
Welcome back, everyone. I'm Brian Craig, always joined by my wife and co-host, Kathy. Thanks for tuning in, everyone. There's another thing going on today in Texas, and I did not pick up on this. Kathy mentioned this to me earlier, and I thought it was chilling. So the NRA convention's going on today, right now as we speak, in Texas, just a few days after this shooting. And what you had told me about, Kathy, is a similar thing happened. The NRA had a convention scheduled in Colorado shortly after the Columbine, Colorado shooting.
That's what they said on the news.
What are the odds of that?
I know. That's really strange. Now, that was a long time ago. That was in the 90s.
Well, it was the late 90s.
Late 90s.
Yeah.
So you're talking 25 years
ago. But still,
ago.
that's very strange.
Yeah.
Very strange. But, I was watching on Right Side Broadcasting today. They're at the NRA convention. They were outside, and there's all these liberal gun control lunatics out front. I mean, and they're really lunatic. I don't say they're lunatics because they're in favor of gun control. If you look at them, they look like wild people. I mean, they're crazed. But the NRA convention, I'm not so sure the NRA should be having their convention this weekend, okay, especially in Texas. I mean, let me give you an example, okay?
Well, all the singing acts canceled anyway.
Yeah.
Everybody canceled.
Well, President Trump's speaking today, and I will, of course, always watch President Trump. And I'm sure he'll have good things to say. But in radio and television, if there's an airplane crash, you don't run airline commercials. In fact, at one radio station I worked at many years ago during a hurricane, we got some this was many years ago. This was during Hurricane Andrew when I first started working with Steve Kane. Hurricane Andrew hit South Florida pretty hard. What was that, 92? 92, 3, 1, 92.
Yeah, 92.
Yeah, and I was on the air during that, and Steve was on the air, and It was an interesting and rough night, but we got ripped. Steve in particular got a very, very, very rough review. The local newspaper here in Miami did a story on the greatest television coverage and the worst local media coverage of the hurricane, and the best was a local meteorologist on one of the local television stations, Brian Norcross, and the best coverage was my radio, or the worst coverage, I should say. The best coverage was the TV station. The worst media coverage was my radio station I worked at with Steve Kane at the time, WFTL. And we got in trouble because, and this was crazy. I remember this line from the newspaper article. It was in, I think it was in the Miami Herald or the Fort Lauderdale Sun Sentinel. I think it was in the Miami Herald. They said while Brian Norcross was warning people of the deadly hurricane, Steve Kane's WFTL radio was running commercials for, while the hurricane was hitting, running commercials for funeral homes and hurricane shutters. And that is true.
Perfect timing.
And I remember somebody told me, I got a call at the radio station from somebody that was in management, and they said, stop running those hurricane shutter commercials. The hurricane's hitting. So I'd asked Steve about it. I said, should we, pull the spots? And he says, no, they're paying for those spots. We're doing the spot. So that's true. So we actually took some heat, more embarrassment for doing commercials during a hurricane for funeral homes and hurricane shutters for your home. It wasn't funny at the time.
So you think the NRA should postpone? We did a poll on your
they should postpone the convention.
We did a poll on your YouTube channel today, and so far we've had almost 500 votes. The question was, should the NRA have canceled their convention this weekend? 15% said definitely. 85% said no way.
Well, let me tell the 85% why I say they should have not had it.
Idea of the audience here.
Okay.
Think,
This is, and I know a lot of people will be mad at me for saying they should have canceled the convention. And they'll say, oh, we're not going to cower to these people. The NRA is a lobbying organization whose primary mission is to lobby members of Congress to keep the Constitution intact. And I support that effort because I am a gun owner.
Oh, yeah.
I own multiple guns. And I've been a gun owner my entire life. Got my first gun when I was 12. Okay, so I've been a gun owner my entire life. Okay, so I'm very strong Second Amendment supporter and all that. But the NRA, they have two missions. One is to make sure that the Constitution remains intact through their lobbying efforts, and they've done a very good job with that. And they do it not just through lobbying, but through the legal system as well, the court system. But another thing they're in the business of is imaging and PR. And from an image PR perspective, for those of us who believe that the Constitution of the United States should not be altered and our Second Amendment should remain intact, it's not a good PR move for them to have the convention. And if you see what's going on,
if they move it though, it's going to make it look like they're guilty.
They should have postponed it.
Well, that's what I mean.
If you look at what's going on Right Side Broadcasting outside the convention, there were unhinged lunatics, Antifa and others outside. And when you look at these unhinged people out there, anything could happen. Okay, with that kind of crew out there, it's bad PR. It looks bad. The media are exploiting it, and it also sets up a situation where these lunatics could start something like happened in Charlottesville. It's not good. No, they should. I'm not talking about caving to these bad guys. Oh, we're not going to let them make us cancel our convention. I'm talking about from an imaging viewpoint. It's not a good image right now because there are millions of people in this country who are not seeing. The only thing they know about what happened in Texas is the image that they're given from the media, and the media is blaming the NRA, and it looks irresponsible to have it in Texas.
Well, the problem is if they do postpone it, then it feeds into the media and it makes it look like they're admitting something. They're admitting guilt to me, and it makes. I agree, it's bad timing. Don't get me wrong, and they're in a pickle. They had Larry Gatlin and Lee Greenwood and a bunch of people performing. They've all canceled. Greg Abbott's not going to be there in person now. Lieutenant Governor not going to be there. So a lot of people have canceled. Trump will be there, though, the most important person. He will be there because he's got guts, as we all know. But I think if they postponed it, they're kind of admitting that we are responsible and we need to. It's like not that they're guilty, but them moving it, or changing it or whatever. I think just makes that could be a bad look too.
I am glad though
because they have nothing to do with this. Nothing to do with this, but if they postponed it to the left, it looks like they're admitting guilt.
No, I agree. It's a listen, the NRA convention it's a catch-22.
It is. It's a bad situation.
If you have it, it's a problem. If you postpone it, it's a problem. But I am glad President Trump's speaking when these other people cancel.
Oh, he's got guts.
And I know that may sound crazy. Like, well, what do you mean? You said they shouldn't even have it. Why are you happy that President Trump is speaking? Because President Trump is the leader of the conservative movement, and whatever, I don't know what he's going to say, but whatever he says will be good and put everything in a proper perspective. And he's a good representative of what we believe in. You know, when you see what happened, you cannot depend on the government to help you. This is why we have a Second Amendment. And
it's exactly why we have a Second Amendment. And I tell you, if the cops had allowed those parents, I know Steve was saying today, well, the parents could get killed. Any parent would lay their life down for their child. Any parent that's worth their salt would take that chance. I asked you if that happened, what would you do? And you said I would go in. I wouldn't even hesitate.
The cops would have had to shoot me.
Exactly. Any parent would risk their life at the chance of saving their kid. And I disagree. I think if they let all those parents rush in there, who knows? I mean, it might have scared him. I mean, I understand their thinking that he could have just, he had a bunch of rounds and he could have shot all the parents too, which would have been horrible. I get that. It's a bad situation, but I do know this, that they were in the hallway, 19 police officers, like on the other side of that wall. And they should have gone in and taken a battering ram and stormed into that freaking room and taken that a-hole down as fast as they could, instead of sitting there and pussyfooting around with him for doing a little dance for 45 minutes while those poor kids that were alive. Can you imagine the fear and the terror that they were going through, crying, calling 911, and just praying and hoping, and those cops on the other side of that door doing absolutely nothing? It makes you sick. It makes you sick to think about it. That they did that. Yeah. And I don't care what their excuse is. The guy even came out today and said it was a wrong call. You think? And all those cops now, I'm sure they feel bad, and they have to answer to people in their community. And I'm sure they feel horrible about what they did. They're going to look like cowards. And 19 cops can't take down this one kid that looks like 100 pounds.
They should all be fired. I'll tell you, I learned something today that I did not know. I learned this live on the air today, getting calls from Texas. Here in Florida, unless you have a concealed weapon permit, okay, which I do not have, but we're going to have unlicensed open carry soon in Florida, thanks to our governor, Ron DeSantis, and I will carry on occasion when we have open carry. But if I can go buy guns. I buy guns. I can go buy guns, but I can't walk out with the gun. There's a 5-day waiting period. And I did not know this. In Texas, there is no waiting period. You walk in, you walk out with the gun. I don't support that.
What do they check in during the waiting period?
If you do not have a weapons permit, they do a criminal background check. If you have the weapons permit, they don't do the background check.
And apparently he had a record. They said he had been arrested 4 years prior
a minor,
for making threats.
And that's sealed.
But somebody might have known. Problem. They need to unseal those records, because a lot of these kids that do this are 18, 19 years old, and they would have a criminal record from their juvenile period. But I also didn't know, Florida participates in the Red Flag program, where people get flagged for mental health and other things, which Texas does not participate in. So Florida does have those kinds of laws. And, I know the audience is going to disagree with me and say about the Army and all this, and I understand that, but I do not feel that somebody that age should be allowed to buy a weapon that can kill so many people at one time. A handgun, yes, but I think whatever type of weapon this is, an assault rifle or whatever you want to call it, AK-15 or whatever it is, AK-47, I don't think you should be allowed. AR-15, there you go. I don't think you should be allowed to buy those kinds of weapons until you're 25 years old. I think that would solve a lot of the problems, because all these kids are 18, 19, and they're just messed up.
A lot of people say, well, you can serve in the Army and be a cop. You can't buy beer, when you're 18.
That's a controlled environment.
Well, here's the thing, okay? The drinking age is 21 throughout the entire United States.
Yeah.
It used to be 19, I remember, and it might have even been 18, but I remember it being 19. I was underage then, and it was 21 by the time I was that age. But anyway, the drinking age, I think, is 21 for a few reasons, and it's a good reason, but good reasons. One of the reasons is it's removed a few years from high school students. If the drinking age were 18 or 19, you have too many kids that are 18 or 19 that are still hanging out with high school kids. So I think that 21 puts a little distance, between the younger kids. And you have to be 21 to purchase a handgun. I think it's not a bad idea to have to be 21 to be able to purchase a rifle. Now, here's the thing,
How can you not purchase a handgun, but you can purchase one of these? That doesn't make any sense to me.
But here's the thing.
It should be reversed.
When the purchasing, you have to be 21 to purchase a handgun and 18 to purchase a rifle. But you don't have to be 18 or 21 to possess them. That's how I had a gun at 12 when I was 12 years old, went hunting with my dad, with my grandfather, and their friends. And I'm 12 years old. I'm walking around with a loaded shotgun, and it's legal and it's fine.
I think that's fine.
And I was with my dad, but
right.
But
I think that's fine too.
But what that would mean is there would still be instances like this, because in Texas, there's no way this kid in Texas, they're blaming that he bought the guns. Okay, I understand why people are saying that, but this is Texas. There's more guns per capita in Texas probably than anywhere else on earth. If he didn't go out and buy these guns, his dad, his grandmother probably had guns at home of her own.
Yeah.
He would have just taken a gun from someone else in his family. They wouldn't have stopped this. I agree.
Well, you never know, but I don't think gun laws deter too much, but it's possible that it could prevent somebody from going out that's not mentally stable.
Yeah.
The brain isn't developed till you're 25 years old. And especially in young men, they're very immature. And we all know this. And, someone who's got some issues with social issues and bullying and things like that, they're like ripe for this kind of stuff. And I just think I think 21 would be better. Maybe 25 is too old, but 18 I think is just too young to be able to go out and purchase one of these. Mm-hmm. Now, if you have a parent who wants to buy one for you and they feel that you're mature enough to handle it, I think that's different. Mm-hmm. But this kid went out and spent his own money, wherever he got the money from, and with the intention of doing this. And another thing is how, Facebook tries to tell you they're all so safe and monitoring everything. In fact, I just saw a commercial on Fox the other day, how Facebook has hired more people than the FBI to protect you while they're running stories of this, and how he was posting on Facebook that he was going to kill kids and kill his grandmother. They didn't do anything about it. They didn't contact the police. They didn't do anything. And now it was in a private message. I give you that. But still, but they're going after parents for showing up at school board meetings. Mm-hmm. They want to put them in jail. But this kid posting that he's going to kill people, it's just crazy what's going on. And everything seems upside down and backwards. It's very frightening. None of us understand how anybody could do this. Obviously, people that are mentally ill do evil things. They commit crimes. That's just the way it is. Sometimes those two can go hand in hand. I mean, I think most people that commit murder have some mental issues. That's not a normal thing to do, but unless it's like self-defense or something, that's totally different. But this is an awful situation. I just cannot imagine. And then the one guy, his wife died. They have 4 kids, and then he died of a heart attack the next day. My God, that's what happened to Debbie Reynolds.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, that is horrific. They've raised $2 million for those kids now already, $2 million for those 4 kids, but now they have no parent. That's just so bad.
You look at what's been going on with law enforcement. This Texas thing happened right after this. Prison guard helped a guy escape. There's a lot of people, because we're conservative, we do support law and order, we do support the police.
Of course.
But that doesn't mean when there's a problem like this, you don't talk about it. I was watching The Five yesterday, and Greg Gutfeld was very uncomfortable. He was defending the police, and he was uncomfortable about doing it because he was afraid the conservative audience would say you're anti-cop. Listen,
just because you go after the cops in this situation, it doesn't mean you're impugning all police officers.
Even the police officers are attacking what the police did not do.
Yeah, exactly.
Today, it took them a day to do it, and the one senior officer with the Texas State Police, I guess it's the Texas Rangers, he even was critical of what the officers did, and he was crying when he went over the 911 calls today.
Oh my goodness.
And he had officers at the scene. So when you've got a senior police officer who had officers at the scene come out and say what they did was wrong, that's unheard of. When this happened at Parkland, The local sheriff defended the actions of the cop that hid and called in fake radio calls, the resource officer.
Here they're admitting it.
And even got him to retire because he had his time in already so that he couldn't be questioned by the police investigators through the internal affairs and tried to have a cover-up that way. This one senior officer that came out at the press conference and said this was wrong what they did, standing outside the door for all that time, that is unheard of. And he really, as bad as the cops were, okay, that guy should get credit for coming out and telling the truth and not covering up. The spokesperson they had on yesterday from the Texas Rangers he was lying.
What is it like for the police officers and the CSI teams to just go in a room like that and just see that bloodbath of children of all things? I cannot imagine. I couldn't do that. I could not do that in my job. I could not go in and see 8 and 9 and 10-year-olds massacred and blood everywhere, and you got 22 people, a whole room full of people.
Cannot imagine.
I cannot, and they have to go in and take out those bodies and clean that mess up and take evidence. How long does it take to process a crime scene like that?
You don't want to know.
We watch ID. You got one dead body. It takes hours and hours, sometimes days, to process a crime scene. They go back. They look at it. This is going to go on. And how are those kids that are lived? What are they going to do about going to school? Would you want your kid going there? How traumatizing.
Now, I want to take a moment to thank all of our Patreon supporters. Thank you so much, everyone, for your support. It helps us out a lot. You really are helping and supporting the program, and it is greatly appreciated. If you would like to become a Patreon supporter, there is a link in the description of this and every episode. And all Patreon supporters, they have access to commercial-free editions of each and every podcast episode. And our top Patreon supporters get a live on-air thank you shout-out on each and every episode. So the names you will hear now are our top Patreon supporters. I want to thank Andrew and Connie, Christine, Gary, ETW, Chuck, Dee, Pamela, Jacqueline, Rick, Rich, and Nick. These are our top Patreon supporters. Thank you so much. Well, we're out of time for today. I hope you all have a great Memorial Day weekend. Don't forget Trump rally over the weekend in Wyoming. We'll be talking about that over the weekend. Also, look for me on YouTube. I do live streams over the weekend from my home studio, taking live calls on YouTube. Brian Craig on YouTube. You can catch that. And I will probably do both a Saturday and Sunday live stream this week. Definitely on Saturday, but on Sunday, I will probably do a live stream on Sunday as a follow-up to the Trump rally on Saturday in Wyoming, which is a big one because President Trump is out there having a rally in support of the lady who is running against Liz Cheney. So look for me on YouTube over the weekend. My name's Brian Craig, always joined by my wife and co-host Kathy. Thanks so much, everyone, for tuning in, and we will talk to you next time.
It's game time. Game time is an attitude and a way of life. So what does that mean? It's about hydroaffirmation and about physical as well as mental health. At hydroaffirmation.com, you can get a water bottle that encourages you to make healthy choices for your body and your mind. The goal at hydroaffirmation.com is to help spread mental health awareness and the importance of speaking things into existence on a daily basis, as well as reducing waste with their non-plastic bottles. Their BPA-free reusable double insulated stainless steel water bottle features their beautifully 3D printed original hydroaffirmation artwork that includes a steel cap, plastic cap, and recycled clear bumper. They use only the best materials, technology, and design to give you a premium product that's built to stand up to your rough, busy lifestyle and still look great when it's sitting on your desk, at work, or tucked in your gym bag. Hydroaffirmation.com helps you become more aware of your thoughts and your feelings so you can control them instead of letting them control you. It's about daily affirmation and hydration. To learn more, visit hydroaffirmation.com. Also, find them on Instagram at hydroaffirmation. Get your reusable stainless steel water bottle today. Nourish yourself and affirm your desires. hydroaffirmation.com.